Greetings! It is I, Countess Nara van Jacoven, Lord and Emperor of the Jacoven Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion of the clans and bloodlines of Vampire the Masquerade from the World of Darkness. We're almost done with them, but today I've got an interesting one for you. The Daughters of Cacophony. So the Daughters of Cacophony are a bloodline of vampires with a truly unknown origin, at least to most. They are rumored to possibly be connected to Malkavians, maybe Toreador, maybe some other histories, but regardless, they all have the disciplines of Fortitude, Melpomene, and Presence. So they are an all-female bloodline of vampires, with the males theoretically having been there, but having disappeared under mysterious circumstances. And of course, they practice Melpomene, which is a discipline unique to them that allows them to have interesting effects using their voices. They, in fact, are singers of much value within kindred society itself, oftentimes seen as, especially by Toreadors, to come to various performances of them to impress those around them. This means that they particularly are an independent clan, but when they tend to align, it tends to be more towards Camarilla. Now, because of their natures and the things about them, it is assumed that there is some kind of origin with them that probably at least evolves the Toreador, with their connections to art, and the Malkavians, to some of the effects of their powers. Regardless, they're very few in numbers, and those that are there tend to reject any direct connections, especially to any groups such as the Sabbat and Camarilla. They prefer to keep to themselves, and in particular keep out of the jihad, keep out of vampire politics. Their nickname is Sirens, because Melpomene, well, it has that effect similar to what a siren is, invoking emotion and manipulating it. Now, there has said to have been males in the past within the clans, but the exact reason that they were purged from the clan, or died out from the clan, or whatever happened to remove them, is actually something that is unknown at this time. There's a lot about the history of this group that is just that, unknown. The fact is, that's the problem with them. Their history is such a mystery. We're not exactly sure where they originally originated from. They could have been the Toreador because of their connection to art and beauty through their music, because the music that they always seem to hear is almost like a hallucination, could be connected to Malkavian, and some of the material within the 20th anniversary, especially the disciplines they have, could even hint at connections to Ventrue. So you can see that there are some confusion as their exact origins. But there are a number of stories, which one might be true. Now there is a story within the Dark Ages that could hint to a story, talking about a Toreador who was traveling, heard some kind of voice, tracked it down, became jealous of this being that was singing, and first sought to kill it. But then became so infatuated with it, it allowed this creature to become its muse. And this was a child of the Fae, and so took the Toreador with it to some Fae realm far away. And then it was rumored that the two of them could be heard in a most amazing and fantastic duet. So perhaps that's an origin story? That's the earliest one that we know about from the Dark Ages. Now another one points to the True Black Hand during the Renaissance. It seems that the True Black Hand wanted to use other things than just the Black Hand to infiltrate the groups like the Camarilla. And it is assumed that perhaps they experimented with creating this group here, taking a number of Toreador singers and having them basically taught very powerful abilities through Malkavian singer. Well, this rumor says that the basically attempt to create these infiltrators failed. They didn't get what they wanted, and a disagreement in the True Black Hand between those that would eliminate them and those that would spare them effectively allowed them to go out into the world on their own as long as they kept the secrets of their origin, well, secret. That could possibly be an origin for them. And the last one actually takes place during the Victorian Age, the last rumor of their origin. Dr. Rainier Stashka, a very prominent Malkavian, was known to do experiments on various vampires during this time period, basically trying to link disciplines to psychological material. And the unfortunate result was many of his patients went mad. And it is said that he had a particularly toreador patient with a penchant for singing, especially when the madness and the pain and suffering from the experiments would come to throw their emotions on someone else through this singing. So you can see here this could possibly be another origin story for this one. Now these experiments are actually the only official story that we know exists. We know the good doctor did exist. We know he experimented on plenty of vampires. And we know there was a toreador woman there. Whether this is the true origins? Well, there is some problems here. The fact is that we have hints of actual members existing during the Dark Ages, during the Renaissance. The big thing to know here is that during the Victorian Age, though, this was the height of popularity of the Daughters of Cacophony, because operas were popular, new music was being invented, constantly new attempts to do things with music, so there was a big explosion of music, of singing, that allowed them to flourish in this time. This is the time period that they are said to have embraced men. Now, when we move into the modern days, into the final nights, the Daughters are just as much of a mystery as they were in the Victorian Age and the earlier ages as they are now, if not even more of a mystery. The fact is, there's just such few numbers of them, and they are so... they don't say anything about their origin. They don't talk about themselves. They keep to themselves. So much so that they are this mystery. They only connect up with groups like the Sabbat, the Camarilla, or the Anarchs for their own good, when they need it. And they will do everything in their power, as I said earlier, to stay out of the jihad, to not be involved in it. They want nothing to do with the normal vampire politics. They have their own goals, their own kind of ideas of what they need to do, and they're sticking to those, and we probably won't know whatever they are, ever. Their real motives are just gone. Which brings us to talk about their actual grouping, what kind of group they are. The fact is, there are so far and few between of them, we just don't have a good connection to what the Daughters are as a whole. Individuals are easy to measure, but these connections that they make with the various groups are so short-lived, and only for their own particular needs at the time, that we don't have them joining anything and sharing a lot of information. They join whatever sect fits them at the time. And the fact is, though, an interesting note is all of them, other than being singers, that's it. The type of song they could have varies completely. One can be an opera singer, the next be a master of heavy metal, and both of them well-respected members of the Daughters. Their organization can be questionable because of this. Now the fact is, they will hear an inner music all their lives. A music that seems to always fill their minds, and can be very distracting in fact, which tends to be their weakness. They're distracted. They call this state the fugue. The music of their inner soul, the music that they constantly can hear all around them in their minds. The fact is, though, that sometimes a daughter will lose itself to the fugue. They become known as banshees. They lose connections with reality, become violent, become dangerous. Banshees are those that have lost themselves to the music, and therefore become a threat. Think of it. Beautiful music that you can hear all the time, but it can also drive you crazy. It can also distract you. It's always there. You can never escape it. This very fact is one of the reasons that they're thought to be connected to the Malkavians. It's a delusion. They constantly hear music. It's an insanity. So yes, this feels like it could connect to the Malkavians and the Toreador very easily because of this sheer fact. Now the Daughters, when they do embrace, they seek those with an aspiring music career. They seek to those that are beginning out on their musical journey, that their talents have not yet been recognized or gained fame itself. Those that they can bring under their wings and then sire, and their sire will then be with them for a good number of years, not only teaching them being a vampire, but teaching them to embrace and understand their musical talent. So you see, it's an interesting thing that they basically bring them up almost not only in the vampire society, in musical society to a degree. It is important to note that a daughter will not discriminate based on music. A sire might sing opera, but they might choose a jazz singer to be their child at. It just has to be that they have this talent, this penchant for the music deep in their souls. Now the fact is, they have virtually no organization. It's the easiest way to say it. Because if you enter into a location, if you find any daughters, it'll be one, maybe two. You might not find any in a location, in a city. That's how few numbers they can be. One, maybe two if you're lucky. There are times which they do tend to congregate. The reasons behind this seem unknown to us, but it is seen when a group of daughters does get together, the younger ones will defer to the older ones. Effectively, the experience, the strength of their voice is seen as being superior. And once these group perform together, whether planned or even impromptu, their song is haunting, beautiful, something to remember when a group of daughters of Cacophony are singing together, something that is truly mystical and angelic, or frightening and haunting. The emotions they wish to invoke will fill you completely. And it is important to note that they will always know the song to sing. Even on those impromptu events where a group of them will sing together, all of them will know the words and be able to sing together. That's an interesting trick of their clan. They all know what's going to be sung and every single word of it. Now we need to talk about the Sons of Discord in every similar group. Contrary to any popular belief, these are all fan-made. As soon as this all-female group came out in its original format, of course someone made a variation of them that was male. There is no real male mentioning in any of the earlier versions of this. The first time males were mentioned was in the Storyteller's Companion, where it mentioned they were all dead under mysterious circumstances. So you can see how they've eliminated them and the fan existence of them very quickly. This was made to be an all-female group, at least in its modern incarnation, which is the main incarnation. This isn't to say that some pseudo-official material hasn't been released. Within the LARP version of World of Darkness, there has been allowances for males, and there is a male member of the Daughters of Cacophony in the Vampire the Eternal Struggle game. But it's more of a legacy characters, i.e. looking back to the past when they more or less lived. The big version differences, the big problems here, is the origins. We have the Victorian age vampires mentioning being existing there with the Toreador woman. But that's only mentioning it. It's not saying daughters in particular. They are truly more in the modern knights and in the versions that were existing there, were built up there. Now, them being a modern clan can mean more than one thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that they just came into existence in modern knights. It might just mean that they emerged into more of a public eye in the modern knights. The daughters could be more of a kept secret, or people could have expected them, thought them all to be Toreadors back in the Victorian age, and therefore weren't recognized as a bloodline until now, until the modern knights. So there are some explanations that can be given for these differences that exist, these conflicts of the actual origin. Though all official canon does tend to point towards Toreador as their main bloodline, just the influences of possible Malkavians or others could exist. Very important. For whatever reason, should you have males of this clan allowed into your game system, there are some important notes that have been outlined in this case. Typically, males are bloodbound to their female sires, and they are distrusted by all that are elder to them. Think of it that way. It is particularly made that it's not impossible to occur, but if it does occur, you're not in good shape. So you might not be happy with it. Discouraging you from something that, it's not like it can't exist, it's just that it doesn't happen. But that's it for today. I introduced you to the Daughters of Cacophony, an interesting, singing-based bloodline of vampires, with such a strange origin that we may never know where they truly come from, but they're there. And if you should ever hear one of their melodies, one of their songs, you too know while those of the Toreadors and many others are infatuated with them. But have yourself a great day, and until the next time, I bid you farewell.